So Dara, you have 3 kids, age 7, 11, and 14. Can you tell us some ways that you make sure that you talk about your body around them? And I want to point out, this is not just for girl moms. This is for moms who have boys too, because it's so important about what they think. So, and for that, like, I do not have a scale in my house because where that will lead. So we don't have that. So what are some things that you say, you talk about your body, or some things that you make sure you don't do in your home?
Yes. Okay. Such a good question. And I just want to say first that I know we were talking about like the guilt of not being good enough at body positivity or good enough at body neutrality. And, there was a time in my parenting where I did a sort of, live in that kind of dieting, body judging world, and for sure would have used dialogue with my kids at that point that I would never use now. But let's just have some compassion for ourselves and remember too that they're going to be more aware of what you're doing now, what you're doing recently. So if you can just stop anything that you identify as harmful for yourself and for them and replace it with healthier behavior, that's what they're going to carry with them going forward. So try not to beat yourself up about, the time that you went off gluten for a year or whatever it is.
So I tried this diet, right.
Oh my God, totally. My kids were like paleo for a solid 5 years. Okay, so they're very glad to have bread back. Okay, so the first thing I do that's a little bit weird is that I show them the way my body looks. I don't hide. Even when I feel self-conscious, because as I said, this is a journey. I'm not like level 100. I never think anything negative about my body. But I do my best to show my body. If I get out of the shower and they're in the bathroom, I get out of the shower. If I need to get from the bedroom to the bathroom naked, I do it. If I'm changing clothes and they walk in, I keep changing. And I just try to reduce the shame-based reactions around the body that maybe we grew up with in our generation. And just try to be, again, we're coming back to that concept of neutrality. It is not about placing judgment. It just is. And so when my little kids, I remember writing a blog that that a lot of people really, really could respond to, that I think I called it, "My daughter calls me fat and here's why I don't correct her."
Yes, I remember that one. I do.
A few years ago now. And what I realized is that if she says, "Oh, you have a fat belly," "Oh, thank you. I like your belly too." As soon as I react to them seeing me, or react to them commenting, or react to them saying I'm soft, or whatever their judgments are of my body, which are not coming from a loaded place necessarily, but coming from an observation place, I just don't react. I just say thanks.
Right.
I like your belly too.
Right.
And so the most important thing I think is trying to remove the reactions. And that does take self-editing. So again, we're coming back to, this is deliberate work. So do you feel great about the way your belly looks? Maybe not. I mean, for me, my belly is the most loaded part. I don't carry a lot of body fat on my limbs. We are like the apple-shaped genetic train.
Right.
So I've always been self-conscious of my abdominal fat. And so that in particular, that area, letting them see that, touch that, rest their head on that, and it just being a part of who I am with no comment, no judgment, is the most successful way for me. Now, it might be different for someone else. Maybe you're not a naked family. If
we're a naked family. I want to tell you what I did, because it's summer in bikinis and stuff, and my daughter said, "Oh, mommy, your belly," she touched my belly and she's like, "That's your belly. I can squish it like this." I'm like, "Yeah." "And do you know what's in there? Do you know why my belly looks like this? I ate food today, and our bellies have our organs and all these things." They're like, "Oh, okay." And I touch her belly. "Your belly has the organs in it too."
Yes.
And she pointed out, and when I get tanned, you can really see my stretch marks on my thighs. Yeah. "Oh, what are these?" And I said, "These are my stretch marks that I got either from you when I was pregnant with you, or your brother. And look, Daddy has stretch marks here because when he was a teen and growing, right? He had stretch marks too." So we point these things out. Oh, okay. Right?
And I think when we have really little kids, they're in that verbal diarrhea thing, and if you are early in your journey and your daughter calls you fat, that can be a emotionally really hard thing to deal with, because maybe you are still thinking that fat is bad, and so I must remove my identity from this word fat. fat, you know, in whatever means possible. But those words can be neutral, and we really want to just follow what the fat activists have re-embraced the term fat. So do we need to edit that out of our family dialogue? Probably not. You know what I mean? It's
That's
a
a good
descriptor.
one.
If my cat gets fat, is that a judgment against my cat? Or if, you know,
Right.
if this pillow is fatter than that pillow, it can just be a descriptor. So I think that word in particular is really loaded for a lot of women, but not reacting to that word and understanding that if someone is described as fat, it's just a description that they've chosen to use for themselves, right? So there's a nuance around like using fat as a slur. That's a totally
Right.
different thing, right?
Yes.
A couple of other things that have been really important for me with my kids is that I've removed women's magazines and those kinds of inputs from the home so they don't stumble. Yeah, there was a period where I still had several subscriptions going. So that's taking that kind of stuff out, as well as like when they were younger, especially, we didn't watch a lot of like network TV. Now it's the age of Netflix. I'm old, so like that's probably a non-issue for most people. But I do find a lot of kind of mainstream teen drama, teen shows, reality TV, etc., has some really, really toxic and problematic in other ways as well, but some
Right.
really kind of toxic themes and language. So I'd watch out for that and kind of what are they accessing on social media, especially if you have kids who are, you know, reaching the social media age, tweenhood and tweendom. And really just starting to question things, as I would say, is the other thing. So when they would say something like, and you mentioned about boys, it was actually my son who first ever expressed any body image issues. And I had been expecting it from my daughters, but not from him, but it was him. So when they express something like, let's say, for example, they said, oh, she looks really fit, you know, because she's lean, let's say. So, you
Right.
know, we don't have to say, well, you know, but we can say, oh, why do you think she looks fit? What does fit mean? What do you think
Mm-hmm.
fit means? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? What about that? Oh, look at that. And maybe you take chances to point out bodies that look different doing powerful fit things too. Like, you know,
Right.
so if there's like a woman, maybe there's a woman running down the sidewalk and she's not thin, you know, I might take the chance to say, look at that lady out running. Great. You know what I mean? Or something, you're just drawing their attention to the fact that there is more diversity than they've been led to believe based on pop culture to this point. And
Right.
the last thing I think I'll say in that is that I know if you have little kids, it's really hard to imagine not having little kids anymore. But stretch marks, weight gain, body comparison, periods, breasts, body hair, body odor, acne, all of those things start pretty young. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that could be as young as 9, 10, 11, right? For some
Right.
kids. And if you are continuing to show shame for your body or allow them to be influenced by shaming sources like reality television, women's magazines, on, you know, whatever it is, or maybe your partner, maybe you need to have a conversation with your partner about how he refers
Mm-hmm.
to women's bodies, or their grandmother, whatever, then you are setting them up that their body is about to go wrong.
Right.
Because if we
Yeah.
only are willing to take a flawless body of a youth, then they imminently, while they're still under your control, imminently will
Mm-hmm.
start to go wrong.
Right. And you know, I had a chat with my mother-in-law because my daughter came home and said, well, grandma said when she eats butter, she gets fat in her belly. And so I said, can we not? No, let's take this kind of
Yeah,
talk about our bodies out.
word. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, okay. I'm like, it has an effect. Like they listen and they remember, right? They remember all those things for sure.
Exactly.
And go, okay, so going back to the fat word, like I remember my daughter came home and said, oh, you know, pointed somebody out that person's fat, or maybe talked about somebody. And for me, I was like, oh, we don't use that word. It's not kind, blah, blah, blah. So you're
Yeah.
saying like that's an okay description as long as we're not using it as in like a hurtful talking to somebody, you know, like hurtful towards somebody.
I think what's important is to follow what fat people are doing with that word. Just like we
Mhm.
need to follow what Black people are doing with how they define themselves, right?
Right.
So as someone who is I'm not very fat, but I am, let's say, mid-size, plus size, whatever you would call that. I mean,
Okay.
it's really important for me to make sure that I'm supporting those who are identifying as fat, very fat. You know what I mean? Those who are really misrepresented or underrepresented, not represented at all in our culture.
Right.
And so because I am not a very fat person, I don't use the term fat on a really casual basis. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what we can do is we can change the way our kids see that term. So when they go, oh, she's fat, whoa. So what? Why are you saying that? What is it about that? Why do you need to tell me that person's fat? Are you going to tell me that person's thin? Are you going to tell me that person's tall?
Right.
So we need to stop and we need to question them, and we need to constantly poke. If you're someone like me who likes, you know what I mean? I like to really challenge these things. And so I poke and say, and they'll learn pretty quick, oh, mom's not here for commenting on people's fatness.
Right.
And they'll stop talking about it.
Right.
And you can teach them by using the term fat that it is a neutral descriptor. So you may describe your places of fat on your body, because fat is just a thing that we all have.
Yeah.
So when they say, oh, your belly's squishy, oh yeah, that's my fat.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Or look, that lady has to use a special seatbelt. Oh yes, because they don't make the seats big enough for all sizes of bodies. So isn't it sad that fat people have to get us, you know, we can put that term in there that's neutral. The point is not that they're fat. The point is that we all have fat, and those who have more fat are underprivileged and underrepresented. So
yeah, and
that's how I would look at it.
Right. And the first time my daughter actually used that word, I said, "What does that mean?"
Yeah.
I just pretended I didn't even, what does that even mean? And she was like, I don't know. So she clearly picked that up from somewhere else. And kids, kids say things and they have no idea what it means.
And they do. And you're not going to control every input in their lives, but you are the most important input in their lives. Yeah. So if you are raising a child who is fat, or a child who will grow to be a fat adult, how awful to think that you would put in their brains from the very beginning that in their essence, they were wrong. Yeah. In their very being, they were wrong. Or that they were the kind of body that should be pointed out for their wrongness. Right. So she's fat is very different from, fat as an adjective, right? Or as a body part. Let's say.
And you know what? Many years before I even started working out in a gym, well, I worked in a gym before, and then I started swimming. And I started swimming just for just change up my routine. And I think when I started swimming, I realized that it wasn't all about becoming slim and stuff. There was all types of body shapes and ages in the pool. And some of these people were much older than me and swimming much faster than me. And that was kind of like the first really eye-opening thing for me, that, man, these people are strong. They are not like typically slim, but they are strong and they are fast, right? So I think, getting your children out and maybe experiencing different sports and different things that, right, they can see all different shapes and sizes.
Show them shot putters, show them wrestlers, show them, there are so many, like Olympics is a great time for that, showing them, examples from your social media, of women. And of course, we want to take this conversation beyond just, fat inclusion to like showing them, women of color doing amazing things in sports, and queer people doing amazing things in sports. But I think just to keep it to what we're talking about right now, like you just said, like, as an adult, you got in the pool and you had a bing moment of like, oh my gosh, you don't have to be thin to be, capable and strong. And that might seem like, now that we're in this like really woke, time where everyone like wants to prove that they are not a bad person, there can be a little bit of the shame there, like, shoot, I actually believed that until like 2 years ago, or whatever it is, right? But, like, imagine that your kids do too. Yeah. So you have to show them, you have to make up for the lack of representation by over representing, over overdoing it on making them realize just how diverse bodies really are, and how we cannot tell by looking at someone's body what their capabilities are. And then of course we get into like some stuff around ableism and different ability levels as well. But the truth is, you can't have a crystal ball and see whether your child will have certain disabilities, whether they will be fat or not, whether they will be, you know, what have you, right? Whether they'll deal with a certain medical issue. Or so really what we can do is not teach them that it's all within their control, because it's not, but to teach them that there is a spectrum for everything, and that there's a valuable place for everyone in society, and every body and every kind of body. And that being thin, being able, being quote healthy is not their responsibility in life. It is not the most important thing about them. And at a kid level, that just, I think it really comes down to exposure. It's oh, look at this cool, you know, like maybe, I don't know, I follow this amazing skipping woman who is definitely identifies as a plus size, or she calls herself fat, but they're like, look at her, look how well she can skip. Like that's it. Those are those little things. They're making connections in their brain and going, oh, fat woman skipping. Oh, I guess you can skip really fast and you can be fat. But before that, maybe they had never seen any representation like that, right? So,
good point. Good point. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dara. This has been great. Can you tell our watchers where they can find you?
Sure. Well, as we already said, I'm Mumbod Love on Instagram. If you're in the Toronto area or in Canada, Belly Bootcamp, bellybootcamp.ca are online and in-person classes for pregnant and postpartum people. And we also do one-on-one training remotely, like via video, or in person if you're just in Toronto, or in-person stuff's only in Toronto. And then mamareset.com, are my online programs with my mom trainer, BFF Laura, who specializes in yoga and Pilates. So she brings her yoga and Pilates in a body neutral approach, and I bring my strength and athletic conditioning, mobility work, and then we combine those into some various programs. So some core and pelvic floor programming, as well as like a membership. So those would be the best places to come check us out and see what can help you.
Awesome. And I'll put the links down below. So thank you so much. It's been great.
So nice talking to you. Thank you.